Hello, everybody. This is Reed Kastner-Lang, host of Dharma Unfiltered, coming in with episode 25 of Dharma Unfiltered from the University of Miami. We got a special guest on the podcast today, Sue Knutson. I first met Sue at Sendik's Fine Foods in Brookfield. My business partner, Evan, and I were going in there to get our ketchup in there for the first time. I think it was probably the first or second grocery store that we got in, and Sue was restocking her cookies, I believe, or you might have been, were you sampling or were you just restocking at the time?
I was bringing samples in for the woman that does demos at the store because they were having a store event the next day, I believe.
Okay,
So,
yeah. We just started talking to Sue, and I think we ended up talking for like 30 or 45 minutes, and she was just giving us all this different advice and all these different resources that have kind of helped us along the way, and that have given us some structure on how to just grow a food business in general. So saw that as super helpful. And I think, it was like a weeknight, and it was a dark, cold weeknight in the middle of the winter. And it's like, right off the bat, I could tell that Sue's super, super, tenacious and hard worker. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring her on the podcast, because I think she could talk a lot about kind of, what motivates her and keeps her interested in the business and keeps her going with it. So Sue, if you just kind of wanted to introduce yourself and give a background on from what you do and what, and you can go from there.
well, Sue Knutson, I guess the biggest thing that identifies me is that I'm the mother of four boys. I have triplets that are 19, that are freshmen in college, and an 18-year-old that is a senior in high school. Um, I started my business called The Naked Baker in 2016, I believe. It's kind of gone through a few different iterations as it's grown. You see, I think when you start a business, you have an initial idea of what you want it to be. But as you grow, you see that there maybe are parts of something that is maybe missing in the market. So then you try to adapt into that. And that's kind of what has happened with my business, because when I started it, well, my kids were in elementary school, and I was the mom who always brought in the fresh baked treats for every school event, birthday parties. Being that I had triplets, I had to bring 3 birthday treats in a week, not just one, but 3. And my kids went to a charter school. So for some time, there were all 4 of them in the same classroom. So then there was a 4th child, then 2 months later, that I needed to bring birthday treats. And so I was always baking cookies, brownies, things like that. And the moms and the teachers are always like, "Oh, your stuff is so good. You should sell it." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. Who's going to buy this? Why would I want to start a business?" So, as my kids got a little older, they needed me a little bit less. So I thought, what am I going to do when they leave me and go to college, which is what is happening right now. So I felt like I needed to maybe listen to these people and start a business. And it really did start out what I'm doing now. I started my business doing a frozen cookie dough because everybody's like, "Oh, your cookies are so good." Well, I thought what was good about them is that they were fresh. They
Mhm.
weren't, grocery store cookies that people usually buy to bring in for birthday treats. They were fresh. So, with that in mind, I thought, well, people need to be able to bake at home. They don't want to take the time to mix the dough. So that was my business idea, was frozen cookie dough, to make it a better for you option than just buying like Pillsbury or whatever there is out there. So sold it in these cool little like Chinese food containers. They were frozen. They had a cute label on them, and that was going really well. People kept asking me for gluten free. Um, so that I thought that was kind of a fad, but it turns out it's here to stay.
Right.
So when gluten free kept becoming more and more requested, one of my grocery customers, Outpost Natural Foods, said, "Oh, you should try doing some gluten free." But, they thought it would be really good. So I sat down and talked to them and they helped me get pricing right and everything. But that's when I transitioned from doing the frozen cookie dough to the what I'm doing now is baked, packaged, gluten free cookies that are sold in the fresh bakery department of grocery stores. um, I think that white space there was really what has made the business grow more, because the other one I felt like, there is a lot of, I found that people, this was before COVID, obviously, so people didn't really want to take the time to bake. I'd be doing demos in stores and seeing people walking by with baked cookies in their cart and they'd be like, "Oh, what's this?" I'd have them try, "Oh, but I don't want to bake it." So there was kind of that balance of some people do want to bake it, they don't want to mix it, and other
Mhm.
people just want to buy something ready made. And being that there wasn't really anything gluten free that was ready made, that's where I saw my white space in the market. And that's when I pivoted the business to doing the Naked Baker fully baked gluten free cookies that are merchandise in fresh bakery for people who need gluten free or just want gluten free, and it offers them something different than what's already there. So,
Yeah, awesome. So, what is your background? Did you go to college, and are you doing this full time now, or do you have another career that you're in?
no, I went to college. I graduated in 1990. So that was a little while ago, probably before you were born, of course, 10, 11 years before you were born. But I got a degree in accounting and I worked at Deloitte and Touche in Chicago for 3 years. Hated my job. I was doing auditing for them and working 80 hours a week. It
Jeez.
was ridiculous. I mean, the life of public accounting. So, if you have any friends that are going into accounting and want to work for a big, well, what is it, the big four now? It was a big eight when I was in it.
Mhm.
It's
Tell
a
them, don't.
it's hard, and it's cutthroat, and you never know who's got your back. It's always a big competition, and you never know who's your friend. So I really didn't like that. I actually was in gymnastics growing up, so kind of in between that transition, I got married, moved to New York, and I didn't want to work on Wall Street, and that was kind of where my career path was taking me. So my husband of 1 year at the time was like, "You should do something you like," and he found this ad for a gymnastics coach in a newspaper.
This was when you were in New York.
Yep.
Okay.
So I started coaching gymnastics, and then I realized, this is really fun. I love working with kids. I thought about going back to school to get my grad degree and be a teacher,
Mhm.
but then his job moved us again, and then I had got pregnant with triplets, and my life changed, and it just kind of, then I was a stay-at-home mom for a while,
Okay.
and I've always wanted to have a career for myself, not just be a mom, which I wouldn't trade anything, staying home with my kids for anything. But I think for me, I've always wanted to accomplish something for myself too, and besides just being a mom. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. There's definitely something just different about like seeing the fruits of your own labor come, and your own labor come to fruition after
mhm.
so much work. How long ago did you start the Naked Baker?
2016.
2016.
So
Okay, so about 5 years. 5 years into
about
development.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're about 3 years. Um, but those first, like at least for us, it was like that first year and a half was like nothing. Like we didn't even have a product. It was like basically making the product and bringing the product to market. Um, and it's definitely a marathon because every day it's weird because every day there's not necessarily something that needs to be done. Like a lot of days there
Yeah.
are, but a lot of days it's like it's like, you know, you might be kind of waiting on something, or the ball might, we always say, like, we always try to keep the ball in other people's court and just kind of, you know, do what we need to do when we need to do it and be on top of it. Um, but it's something that takes a lot of adjustment and takes a lot of practice on like a day-to-day basis. You know, people always talk about entrepreneurship as just like a really like hard, long grind. And I think what makes it toughest is the longevity of it and how long it lasts. And, you know, like it's it's easy to be excited about an idea like right before you start it, or when you have the idea and you're like, okay, like I see the potential of it. But it's much harder, you know, 3 or 5 or 7 years into development to still wake up with that fire and still be like, okay, like I want to do this. um, I'm going to do what it takes to make this thing work. What are some things that just motivate you to keep going? What is your main purpose behind the Naked Baker?
I think it's, you know, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, entrepreneurship, people start out, they start a business and they're all starry eyed and they're thinking, oh, they're going to be the next RX bar or, you know, I don't know, Cow Power or something like that. You know, you think of those unicorn brands that really grow and they're the ones that are acquired for $600 million by Kellogg's or whatever. So when you start your business, you've got these starry eyes and you're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. But like you said, when you start a business, especially in food, I think food is especially hard because there are so many moving parts. It's not just like if you started consulting, all you have to worry about is you and the clients you're going to get and the
And
things you're
one
going to tell
subject.
them and help.
Yeah.
It's a much more clear path, I think. Whereas food is very, very hard. And I'm sure that you're kind of figuring this out because as you when you start, like you said, you get your product developed, but as you grow, um, you discover more challenges along the way. Like you want to obviously sell more, so you got to get into more store channel, you know, diversify your channels. Like with COVID, a lot of people who were in food service went out of business because they had a very they weren't omni-channel at all. They were very focused in one channel. So I think you know, diversifying it and in, you know, as you grow, then like right now, what we're having problems with is formulation issues to keep the cookies staying fresh. So I think a little bit of a tangent there, but I guess what motivates me is always trying to grow to the next spot and you know, overcome the challenges that are on occurring on a daily basis. And, you know, like with COVID, the big thing for me was trying to diversify our sales channels. So we had more omni-channel than 95% of our business in grocery. So getting a website going and a good e-commerce platform, getting our product working on Amazon. So I think when you're diversifying like that and you're going in so many different directions, there are always things that you're trying to learn and trying to make it work. And I guess for me, every little failure is a learning experience, but I don't want to have a big failure. So that's like, oh my gosh, how can I make this work? So I'm always trying to learn. And, you know, the learning I think is what motivates me and just trying to get to that next level. I think, you know, like I said, when you start a business, you're starry eyed. You want to be like that next unicorn brand, but it's really hard to even get to $500,000.
Right.
And, you know, if you get to 100,000, you're like, wow, I sold $100,000. That's awesome. Now let's go to two. So, you know, you just, I don't know. It's always, there's always a challenge, always a hurdle to get over and a mountain to climb. So, it's just
Mm.
perseverance, I think, and just trying to learn as much as you can and move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, and another thing that we've kind of found is like every, you know, the longer that we put into working on the business, the less we want to quit, because it's like that if we like we that the idea of quitting has never even like crossed our mind, because it's like anything that I've ever started, I've finished. Like
Mhm.
there's no such thing as quitting. Like it's just like every single day, there's no other option but to do what needs to be done. And I think that's been, for me, that's been kind of ingrained in me because I had the landscaping business the past 4 years over the summers in high school. And it was like, every weekday and sometimes Saturdays, it was like, we're getting up and we're working. It doesn't matter how late we were up last night or the night before or what. Like if it's a weekday, we have customers that we have to satisfy, and that goes for the food business as well. You know, like we have customers, and we have not only that, but we have our community and our family that we feel like we're almost obligated to do it for as well, and obviously for ourselves too.
Well, and you say about quitting, oh my gosh, there have been so many times where I'm just like, I wanted to quit, especially recently with some things that have happened. And it's just then I have that little voice inside me that's like, wait, but you can't quit. You've invested so much into this, and there's so much, I've sacrificed a lot of time with my kids and my husband and my family, and I can't quit now. I've just too much of me is in this. And like you said, quitting isn't an option. It's like, all right, so how can I make it better so it will still grow, and I'll be happy doing it, and it's going to go the way I'd like it to. So, I think it's just figuring out um, you know, how to make yourself happy and continue to grow the business and have
Yeah.
everything going in the right direction, which isn't always, it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Right. Yeah. So what is your
Um,
ultimate goal like for the business? Is there an ultimate goal, or are you just kind of are you just going one day at a time?
my ultimate goal, of course, at the beginning was to grow it big, sell it off, and make millions of dollars. Well, once you get in it, you realize that doesn't happen to many people.
Yeah.
So, I guess I take it in small steps. I don't really have that ultimate goal. Um, I guess just trying to get into new regions of distribution, and getting distribution and working on new cities to enter into the market, and just growing the business outside of where it currently is at, and reaching new customers any way I can. I mean, I guess that's my focus now, because I feel like if I can do that, the business is going to grow organically. And I've had a lot of organic growth in my business,
Yeah.
um, just with, finding that white space in the market where our product sits. There's been a lot of organic growth just that way, and a lot of good market penetration in the current stores and sales channels we're in, a lot of repeat customers. So that tells me a lot that people really like the product. So when I look at that, I'm just like, all right, how can I reach more people? And I think as you reach more people with your product, it's going to help define your ultimate goal. But I think your ultimate goal probably is going to come in little bits and pieces over time until you can solidify it into a um, achievable, realistic goal, rather
Mhm.
than, like I said, going in and thinking, yeah, I'm going to be that next brand that gets bought out by a big CPG company, and then I'm done. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
it
know.
doesn't.
It's interesting because 2 nights ago I did a podcast with a kid who's super entrepreneurial, super kind of spiritual, and we were just talking about life. He was at the University of Miami for a couple months, and he actually dropped out last semester to pursue like content creation and his YouTube channel and merchandising and consulting pretty much like full time. And we were just thinking about not just in business but in life, like the grand, is there like an ultimate goal, is there like a grand finale? And I think that if you have that in your mind, if you have like an ultimate goal in your mind, like there's pros and cons to it, because if the ultimate goal is to sell the company, then you can kind of work backwards and look at it. Okay, like if I want to sell a company for this amount of money, here's what revenue we're going to need. If I'm going to have this
Mhm.
revenue, here's how many stores we're going to have to be in, and kind of work backwards that way. But I think, when you're talking about bigger picture, like life, uh, so my dad was harping on me and telling me I need to think about like infinite games versus finite games, and infinite games is like life. Like there's no ultimate goal in life. There's no grand finale. Like that, it's just not going to happen. And um, in finite games or in business, there could be, but relative to your life, like it's like, once we would sell, if we do end up selling the business, it's like, okay, like we sold it, now we have a lot of money. It's like now our lives aren't over. Like
Mm-mm.
it's like what's the next thing?
Right, exactly.
When that
Yeah.
day comes, it's like we probably will look back on these days and be like, these were the days. These were like that, like we're like grinding to get up to the, like on that journey up the mountain, like climbing the mountain is actually what was the most valuable thing, I think,
Mhm.
and kind of the constant progression, because it's not just a progression of the business, but I find that when I'm progressing the business and I'm on top of that, like I naturally feel like I need to be on top of myself, and progressing myself and in tune with, my health, because if my physical health is bad, then my mental health is bad, and the business health is going to be bad. So it's
Right.
like, um, it's all aligned, I think.
Yeah, and I think you talk about the ultimate goal. Well, I don't know that any of us know what our ultimate goal is in life or our business or really anything. And I think that that's when you just need to be clear on what your values are and really drive those values into your business, because it's going to come through in the product, and the consumer is going to relate to the values whether or not it's clearly stated or not. I just think it kind of just comes through in the brand as you develop the brand. And I think, in life too, you just got to be clear on what your values are, because there's so many things in life and in business that can take you away from those core values that are really important to you. And then you kind of get off path, and then you're kind of like, where do I go now? Or, well, how did I get here? Or, so I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, those values change over time, and if you're putting the right things into your mind, and you're consuming the right things, and you're like doing the right things, and you're, surrounding yourself by the right people, like
Right.
that, I think that's the most interesting thing. Like if you're surrounding yourself with people that are constantly progressing and growing, you're naturally going to too, and just to every day kind of literally see that progression is pretty cool.
Well, and
So
surrounding yourself with the right people is really important. I've always, my whole life, tried to find people who were smarter and better than me. And because why would you want to be around people who aren't? I mean, I guess it gives you a false sense of security that, oh, yeah, I'm really awesome. But really, there's a lot more awesome people out there. So why not hang around with those more awesome people and try to up your game a little bit? And I mean, what's the saying? Something like you are the sum of the five
yeah,
people you hang around with the most, or something. Well, why not hang around with the best five people that you can find
yeah,
and try to make yourself even better, rather than just, limping along thinking you're great because all your friends are
right,
losers, or, whatever. I'm just,
yeah.
you don't want to hang around people just to make yourself feel good. So,
Obviously, that's a subjective thing. Like people that are more entrepreneurial, or that are more health conscious, are naturally going to be attracted to like-minded people. Now, I think that, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and students and people that just work so hard, and just kill themselves every single day. Like it's just like they don't allow for any time for enjoyment. So that's kind of the balance that I'm working on finding. Is like, they always say, like, I've heard, you should never sacrifice what you want most for what you want now. I think that's like 90% of the time true, but we could die tomorrow. And I don't want
Mhm.
to die without having some really fun and cool experiences behind me and just having not actually enjoyed my time here. So it's like, not that I don't enjoy the grind and the process, but there's a lot more to the world than just ketchup and cookies. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so
Well,
kind
and
of finding that balance.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's all about balance, and I guess you could equate it to a life to a diet. Whereas if you're trying to lose weight and you're doing really good, then all of a sudden that piece of chocolate cake appears and you eat the whole thing. Well, that's an experience that isn't worth missing. Or you think, oh gosh, if I go out with my friends tonight rather than working on, this spreadsheet of whatever, am I going to be that much better off doing that? Well, balancing is good because you do need to live your life and have fun. And you're in college, you need to have fun doing what college kids do. And I guess, just still keep your eye on the prize and in what's really important in as far as, what you want to achieve, but you've got your whole life ahead of you. So you don't want to get to be older and look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have had more fun, or I wish I would have, studied harder. I mean, you just got to find that balance so you can be okay with what you're doing and feel like you're accomplishing things in your business, still having fun with your friends, and you're not just letting something go. So I guess just kind of,
And I think obviously, we talked about how nobody will ever really know what their end goal is, or grand finale, or even like their purpose. But if you can, like, I think this podcast for me is the thing that is like kind of the thing that I want to be, really proud of when I'm older. Like, I just want to be able to, because this is a very timeless thing. Like, I want to do this for the rest of my life and just kind of progress it and getting, you know, more guests on it and better guests and keep going and going and going with it. So I think that if you can find something, whether it be a business or whether it be a podcast or whether it be, maybe even like research, if you can find something that you're super passionate about and that you can put time into every single day and that you really don't get tired of, I think that's
yeah.
the really tricky thing. But if people can figure that out, then everything else will kind of follow. Like
Yeah,
I go ahead.
I totally agree with you because I've spent most of my life trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to be because I hated my job in accounting. Then I had kids, and I tell you, if I would have been able to start this food business when I was in my 20s, it would be like it could have been my whole life career. But it's something I always wanted to do, but I didn't actually do it until I was in my mid 40s. So it's you don't want to wait too long to do stuff, but you also got to do it when the time is right too. So,
Right, right.
and
And
just
it
little things along the way could help you grow, like with your podcast and just,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And finding that thing. um but again, like I had a guy on, Amos his name is, and he is another ketchup company actually based out of Pennsylvania. But I had him on the podcast and we actually didn't talk about ketchup business or even business at all throughout the entire thing. But the one thing that I keep remembering from that conversation the most is he said, sometimes, man, you just got to be a person. You just got to be a regular person sometimes. Like, sometimes people just forget how to be a person. They forget, because in this world where we're so overstimulated and so obsessed with like finding the next, like he was saying, like finding the next opportunity on LinkedIn, or finding the next connection, or finding the next way to make money, or finding the next thing for your business. Those things are important, but he, in his words, nobody ever sat on their grave and said that they wish they worked more. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the time, like if it, like I don't want to sacrifice like my relationships or my happiness, for the growth of a business or a podcast or whatever it is. Like I think that I'm going to be more effective in my work on a business or a podcast if I have that balance, and I'm doing, you know, both of those things. So that's something that stood out to me, is just kind of remembering to just be a person, because I think that a
Right.
lot of people can become kind of like robotic in the way that
Yep.
they conduct their life and their business, because they think that, okay, I'm going to sit down, this is how I'm going to be the most productive. Well, even if you, it's all relative. So like how much difference are you actually making? Like a ketchup at the end of the day is just ketchup. Like in the large scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. Um, so
Yeah.
it's like,
Well,
uh,
and I think, through life, you just want to, like you said, be real, be a person. I think too many people go through life and business trying to be perfect all the time, and they don't want people to know that there's things wrong on the other side, or that they don't know something. They're maybe, trying to be too perfect, or they don't want to be infallible. So I think, in business, like just the situation, something happened with the grocery store, and they called me and talked to me about, I'm like, honestly, I really don't know what to do here. And instead of trying to come up with something that, you know, kind of bullshit my way through it, I was just like, you know what, help me out here. I don't know what we should do. Let's work together on this. And I tell my kids all the time, you're never going to know everything. There's always something else you're going to learn. So don't be afraid to admit you don't know something. Don't be afraid to admit you're wrong. If you make a mistake, own up to it, or apologize. If you've hurt somebody, just be that person, because I think that type of person is going to go farther in the long run than the person who is fake, or tries to feel like they know everything, or they, like you said, have forgotten how to be a person. And I think with technology, there's so much that has changed with people. People are losing the ability to communicate. And I think that's one really important thing that young people especially need to focus on. You don't just text a girlfriend to break up with her. You actually talk to her and say, this is why. You don't want to just forget we are people here, like you said, and you still want to have that face to face interaction, because I think communication is so important. And that's really what makes the world go round, because without communication, so many things break down. And why do people have business meetings? To talk about stuff. They don't text it, they don't email it, because so much more comes out in communication. So
I
I
completely
think,
agree.
to
Yeah.
piggyback on being a person, that's, I think, where it's at.
I completely agree, and that's kind of the purpose. One of the bigger purposes of this podcast too that I was thinking about, because I started in mid October, and the first couple months of school here, I was kind of overwhelmed by how many kids like would walk around on campus just like constantly looking at their phone, and how big it is. Like on how like I've been on social media, but like it's like not as much as a lot of these kids on college campuses, and how big it is. I had no idea. So I was like, okay, like there is definitely value in these long form conversations, and like we would like just if we were just texting, we would never be even having like
Right.
this in-depth level of conversation. And so I think that's also important for like this generation, and honestly every generation, to continue to make sure that they're either, consuming long form content, or most importantly having, long-winded just conversations just with close people, like, family and friends. And
Mhm.
it's like we're so short term oriented, like especially with social media. Like we're always looking for the next opportunity, the next thing to do. where we never really just sit down and just think about like our lives and reflect and think about like the long term and what we
Mhm.
want um, to accomplish kind of in our lives.
Yeah, I think social media creates a very surface kind of existence, I guess. People, like Snapchat, my kids Snapchat, and I'm like, so your life is that important where everybody needs to see a picture of your face? Or, you put a little thing on Instagram and about your vacation. Well, it also makes people insecure because then they think your life is really great. But who knows? Maybe you're struggling on the other side, but nobody ever wants to see that. So, like you said, communication is, where it's at. So get
Yeah.
beyond the surface of social media and actually sit down and talk to somebody.
Yeah, and it works
Don't
wonders.
just DM a, you
It's
know.
crazy what it can do for like your health, your mental health too, just to like step away from the social media. Like it's like there's a whole nother world because just in like kind of in passing or time where you're not necessarily doing anything, like my first instinct and most people's first instinct, it doesn't matter, most adults I mean they're using more Facebook, but most kids Snapchat, Instagram, like first instinct is just to grab the phone and go for social media, whereas they could be doing so many other things. Like they
I
could
know.
imagine what we could be doing. And I'm not perfect. Like I'm probably gonna naturally want to go on Snapchat right after this, but you know I think that it's time for a cleanse for me soon here too.
Yeah, I think, just keep your head up and look up. Don't be always like this, looking down at everything. And, your phone, you're always looking down or whatever. Just look up and realize what's around you and the people that are passing
Yeah,
you by and, make
yeah.
friends, communicate, all that.
Because oftentimes like where you are physically will naturally attract people that you're like-minded to. Like if you're out doing something that you like to do and there's someone else there, like there's a reason probably why they're there. Like don't
Hmm.
always like be Snapchatting people that aren't even with you in the moment.
Right.
Look around you and you can make
Go
some
on.
new friends you know just by starting a conversation. um,
Yep. You miss so much looking down all the time.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
All right. So just one more thing. If you had any tips for, any entrepreneur, whether it doesn't matter, there's no such thing as we all have a lot of time. It doesn't matter if you're 80 years old or if you're eight. Like, if anyone has like an idea for a business, or even just an idea for something that they kind of want to execute on, whether it be music or art or whatever it is. What are some tips or some advice that you would give someone who wants to
Mm.
start?
I would say just know where your passion is and stick with that and try to build around your passion, because if you get too far away what your passion really is, you're not going to really want to do it anymore. As far as starting a business, it's in anything too, it's hard to get where you think you want to be. Again, we don't know where exactly. We have an idea, but if we have that big goal, that big end goal of what we think, where we think we want to go, it's going to take a lot of hard work to get there, regardless if it's a business or music or getting your degree. There's a lot of hard work that gets in that is involved in getting to the finish line. So I guess just keep grinding away, and there's always going to be, if you're in a really hard spot, there's always going to be tomorrow that could be a much better day. And I don't know, there's so many things that happen that one day it's like, oh man, why am I doing this? I just got to stop. But then the next day something will happen. It's like, oh, this is awesome. Then you're
Yeah,
flying on cloud nine again. So I guess just always realize there's tomorrow and another day, or something's always going to happen that's going to take you down, but there's always something on the other side that's going to bring you back up.
right.
So don't get discouraged, work hard, and I guess that's probably it.
Yeah, I've seen. So I saw a like a graphic one time, an illustration where it was like two people like mining underground, and um, they were both at like the same exact spot, but uh, the diamonds or the gold were like right on the other side, and they were both almost there, and one of them turned around and was discouraged, and the other one just kept going and got there. Like you never know how close you are, like
Right.
the gold or what you're chasing, or you might not even know that you're chasing it, but something could just happen, like you said, like tomorrow, and you would never even know. So that's something that kind of keeps me motivated too,
Yeah. And
because
they always say hindsight is 2020. It's easy to look behind, but you can't look forward. If we could look forward, wouldn't that be awesome? But we can't. So we just don't know what's coming. So I guess you just
we
keep
can do
working
everything
and
in our power to control what we can in the present, and do what we can to influence the future. But there's it's most of it, 99% of it, is out of our control in reality.
yep, it is.
Cool. Thank
Yep.
you very much for coming on. Let's stay in contact about business and other, and so yeah, thanks again.
Well, thank you for having me.
Have a good day.
And good luck with your all your studying.
Yeah. Thank you.
And remember to have fun. So,
Yes. All right, have a good one.
all right. Bye.